Okay, so this is the relationship that most of us have to the economy. We have an employer, and then this is us, and we sell our labor to the employer in exchange for money. One of the ways our employer drives down what they have to pay us is they informally and sometimes formally play us against those people who are unemployed. The fact that there's people who are unemployed who could do our job makes us as an individual dispensable. The employer can get what it needs done without us. We're dispensable. And so for this example, I want to start using a private employer, a hotel. So in a hotel, there's restaurant workers who are selling their labor. There's housekeepers who are selling their labor and they're cleaning the rooms. There's bellmen who are selling their labor and they are carrying people's suitcases. But in all of these cases where there's dispensable individual workers, there's also the reality that if these restaurant workers unite, the restaurant can't be run without them. If these housekeepers unite, they are indispensable towards getting rooms cleaned. If these bellmen unite, as a workforce, they have negotiating power if the hotel wants its guest's suitcase carried. If all of the workers unite together, they then have even more negotiating power because the entire workforce of the hotel, the ownership and management of the hotel, cannot make profit without the workforce. They can make profit without an individual worker, but they cannot make profit without the workforce. And so the united workforce is indispensable. The company's ability to profit and compete for future profits rests on this workforce. They are indispensable. So now the question for us is, how does that apply to universities or public sector jobs? And in many ways, it's very similar. So this is the employer, this is the university, and the university is competing against some other employers for talent. And they have a very similar relationship with an individual worker. There are unemployed workers that could replace this worker. There are employed but searching workers that could replace this worker. And thus, this worker is dispensable for the university and its management, its administration, doing what it needs to do. And this is obviously, there's some departments left out, but we're just doing this for an example's sake. University, there's adjuncts, dining service workers, grad workers. Again, as individuals, they don't have a lot of power, but adjuncts united, dining service workers united, grad workers united, and then the entire workforce united. The work the entire workforce does is indispensable. Indispensable not towards creating a profit, but indispensable towards creating a public good. So what does that mean? Private sector workers gain power when they unite to make themselves indispensable to a company's profit. What happens when public workers unite, making themselves indispensable to production of a public good? Well, in many ways, it's very similar. A hotel general manager wants to keep labor costs down so we can make the most possible amount of money for the hotel. But when we start uniting and organizing, That hotel manager says, "Oh no, I lost control. Without control, I can't make the hotel any money. I must look good to the owners. Give concessions to the workers in order to regain control." And that's very similar to a university president. Keep labor costs down. The more I prove I can keep costs down, the more likely I am to keep my job and get a great salary. "Oh no, I've lost control. Workers have been organizing. Without control, I can't produce the public good I'm expected to. People will be upset. I could lose my job. Elected officials might fire me. Give concessions to the organized workers in order to regain control." So, in many ways, very similar. However, one thing that is different is that when there's public ownership, that means that there's a budget that is decided by publicly elected officials, and those publicly elected officials get voted in based on a performance, in part based on whether they've secured or protected the public good. And this is something we need to keep in mind for both defensive and offensive reasons. Let's talk about the defensive reasons first. Our university president says, "Wait, I have an idea. I know a way I can regain control without making concessions. People are mad that the public good is not being produced. I'll blame the workers. I'll get elected officials to help me blame the workers. We'll say things like, 'Good workers don't want the union,' and 'You're a taxpayer. Don't let greedy workers take what's yours.'" So in the event a public workforce gets organized and the university as administration is worried about the disruption caused by this, both sides are going to go and try to make their argument to the public. We need to be aware of that for purposes of our power. But there's a positive piece about this too. And this is the offensive part. Traditionally, public sector jobs have been jobs that are places where there's increased ability to contest against racism and sexism, for people to be able to get ahead, and wages tend to be better, benefits tend to be better. And that's because when we think about admin, they're the few. The workforce is the many when it comes to making up the public. And these are the things that frame our power as public sector workers, as organized public sector workers, as a union.